Hello and welcome back to another episode of our draft series. I'm here today to talk about Taylen Green. Hopefully going to knock out some of these late round guys here with the rounds 4 through 7 of the draft being today. Getting to these guys a little late, but still excited to talk about Taylen Green and a couple of the other guys that will most likely go in there in the later rounds. So Taylen Green's an interesting prospect. He started out at Boise State. He's a guy that has a ton of tools, ended up playing a couple years at Arkansas, and was on a team at Arkansas that did not have the appropriate talent around him in order for them to have success in the SEC, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense the past couple of years has been horrendous, resulted in the firing of Sam Pittman and clearing house there. He did have some pretty athletic players around him on the offensive side, which lines up exactly with his skill set. Green is 6'6", he's 227, he has almost 10-inch hands, and he's a guy that put up some of the best combine numbers in NFL history as a quarterback. You could put him in the category of a wide receiver, and he still would have tested as well as almost any wide receiver has in NFL history. Super explosive, a guy with really long strides, like overall just an elite athlete, and has prototypical NFL size. So you start out with that foundation saying like, okay, I'm interested, right? Like there's things to be excited about here. The question you have to answer is then, can he actually play quarterback, right? Can he actually do the things that a quarterback needs to do in the NFL to be able to leverage his athleticism at the next level? So like I said, truly special athlete we're talking about here. Maybe one of the best athletes in the past 10 years. It's probably him and Anthony Richardson that are 1 and 2 in that regard. Green is even he's a quicker, more explosive athlete than Richardson. Richardson had a little more size to him, but that's the type of athlete you're talking about. With his 6'6" frame, he's a guy that has really long strides. There's times where he just eats up space from defenders, and he's a guy that you just don't expect him to be able to get the corner on a run, and all of a sudden he's a couple feet ahead of the defender and picks up a few extra yards before he runs out of bounds. So that's what you get most excited about with Green. That is when he's out in the open field, it is really fun to watch. There are some other benefits from his game before I get into the negatives, which obviously the quarterback stuff is why he's not a top 10 pick or a first-round pick. He did play in an offense that asked him to do more NFL-like things. He played for Bobby Petrino at Arkansas, who was formerly in the NFL. That's who coached Lamar Jackson at Louisville and helped prepare Lamar for the NFL. He plays under center a good amount, so this isn't a guy that just played in a gimmicky college offense, right? He did have the opportunity to push himself to develop those NFL-level skills. So the experience there is a positive, but the negative is how much more are you going to get out of him, right? If he's already been working on this and hasn't fully reached that point yet, it's not going to be completely new to him if that's introduced to him at the NFL level. But he does play under center pretty often. I will say I think his ability to throw with touch got better as he was in school. I think it looked a little better in 2025 than it did in 24. We'll get into some of the weaknesses of the throwing as well, but this guy extends plays really, really well. I mean, it's unbelievable sometimes how quickly he escapes from a defensive lineman in the pocket and turns what could be a negative play into a positive. And no one gets him down one-on-one in space. He doesn't really even have to perform any sort of fancy juke move. He's fast enough where he'll just run around you. On the throwing side, I do think one of the biggest positives for him is that he is an aggressive processor. He's trying to find the high and the high-low. He's not just checking the ball down every time. We'll get to some concerns in that regard, but this is a guy that is trying to push the ball down the field. So those are the positives with Green. Now let's jump into some more of the concerns. You'll notice I haven't really talked much about decision-making or accuracy yet, and that's because these are legitimate concerns with Taylen Green. Although he did improve a little bit on his touch throws in 25 and just doing it more often, it's still not very good. And he still struggles to throw with accuracy in those situations where he's trying to throw with touch. He just, in general, has very poor accuracy. I would say this is true short, middle, and deep. I just think it's really inconsistent across the board. He does have pretty good arm talent, right? There's tough throws he's able to make. It's just sometimes it's really inconsistent. And I think part of that is he has a pretty inconsistent throwing motion. His arm slot is really low, and he gets away with it because he's 6'6", but I still don't think it's the most effective way for him to be throwing the ball. So that's like, he has some mechanical concerns that I don't think are just easy fixes when he gets to the NFL, and something that I could see persisting for him. As far as the decision making, he just does not see underneath zone droppers well at all. Like, there's times where he's trying to read, again, like the high and the high-low, and just does not consider the fact that maybe the underneath guy in zone is going to sink back deeper. And in that situation, like, he's got the check down there. He just does not read it out right. And there's times where he forces a lot of balls that almost become interceptions or do become interceptions because of that. I also think, and this is one of the things that kind of pulled me back on him more so, is I also don't think he's a very good decision maker when he's trying to create, especially like throwing decisions. Like, running the ball, he's fine, but when he is in the open field trying to find an open receiver, he still doesn't see the field very well. And that really hurts him, because there are times where he forces throws that turn into interceptions when he's out on the run. In general, like I talked about the poor accuracy, I think the ball placement's pretty bad as well, just in terms of he does not set his guys up well for yards after catch. There's a lot of times where guys have to jump or reach above their frame to make a catch, and it slows them down. And lastly with him, I talked about like the low arm slot earlier. He also has a really long throwing motion and does not have a quick trigger whatsoever. You see it in the quick game. He's sometimes a little bit late. It also just means it's harder for him to get throws off against pressure, or, really get everything into a throw, because if he doesn't have the opportunity to get through that full motion, it's just difficult for him. You see this in the quick game a lot. A lot of guys, like Carson Beck's one of these guys, where when he's throwing short, he can really just flick the ball out. He doesn't have to go through his full motion. Green, he still kind of has to bring that arm back and up in order to make that throw, and it definitely hurts him in the quick game. All right. Those are most of the notes on Green. All right, so let's get into the clips. Green has a lot of fun plays to watch on tape, right? He has a lot of highs, he has a lot of lows. There's multiple games that Arkansas played in this year where, because their defense was so bad, they're in crazy shootouts, and he's asked to do a ton. The quality film, like all 22 that I'm showing you, is from 2024. I was able to watch some games from 25 as well, but the clips I'm going to show you are from a game against Oklahoma State in 2024. So first clip here, this is a good example of where you see the elongated throwing motion hurt him. So they're running a little like stutter go up the outside here. Green reads this fairly well, I would say. Like, it makes sense to take a shot here, and your guy's got a little bit of separation. But again here, you'll see as he's going to make this throw, it doesn't necessarily hurt him too bad here. You're just going to see the long throwing motion. But he does, again, his accuracy is just not great. Like, he leads him up the sideline out of bounds, makes it to where the receiver has no shot to make a catch here. You also see the low arm slot from this angle. Not sure it really impacts the accuracy here, but it gives you a good view of like those are the mechanical concerns that I was referencing earlier, on top of the fact that the accuracy is just not very good. This next example is one where I think sometimes you see the processing plus the mechanics get to a worse spot. You'll see here he's rolling out. They're in red zone. They're trying to hit a little quick hitter, sneak this little tight end out into this open space, and it works perfectly, right? Like, this guy's wide open. Watch Green, watch his feet on this play. Hitch, and then he throws it behind him, right? So not only does he make this throw way more difficult than it should be, because he continues to set his feet over and over and over before he finally gets the ball out, then he misses behind too. And because he waited so long, his margin of error was smaller. And so then he made his work cut out for him, and then he misses the throw. These are the plays, like, you just can't miss these if you're going to play in the NFL. Like, it can't happen. But there's mechanical concerns plus processing issues where he's sometimes late to trigger, and also just the footwork slows him down, the release slows him down, and he's just late too often on tape. All right, now let's get to some of the fun plays. So this is a good example. They fake a little screen out to the outside, and they send number 2 deep down the sideline. He doesn't really have the opportunity to get his whole body into this throw because there's some interior pressure, but his arm talent's awesome, right? Like, he just has a fantastic arm. This throw ends up incomplete, so not a huge gain here or anything for Arkansas, but you see the tools from Green on this throw. And there are times where he pins it on a guy deep down the field, just like this. He's got some real talent. Okay, again, here's an example of the tools on the running side. So I don't know what Oklahoma State is thinking here. They try to pull this like stunt. I would imagine this defensive end is probably not supposed to get upfield as far as he is, because now you just have like nobody here within 20 yards really of Green. But what I want you to see here is when he has an opening, I mean, he has explosive speed. These guys are just left in the dust, and he gets down to the 5-yard line before the DB has a shot to make a play on him. Green is a guy that when he gets out moving, he's going to make you pay if you give him a shot. All right, that does it for the clips with Green. Fun. He's a fun watch, right? Just a lot there to his game, and the concerns are more so on the processing side and the decision making, the accuracy. So you still see some high level stuff on his tape. All right, let's move into comps for him. I usually do best case and worst case. I will do best case first today. My best case for him is Colin Kaepernick. This is a guy who was also really tall, but was an effective runner. The 49ers offense was built very specifically around his skill set and was able to reach a pretty high level for a few years there. I think Green, I would be less confident in him compared to Kaepernick. I think Kaepernick was a significantly better decision maker and thrower coming out of college than Green is. But if he can continue to develop that, I do see some upside here because the tools are so outrageous and the size is so good. He's got a chance. My worst case for him is Terrell Pryor, and I use this to bring up a point in this conversation, which is if he doesn't want to hear this right now, he wants to play quarterback. But if this doesn't work in 2 or 3 years and he's looking at being out of the league, he's going to get a shot to play wide receiver or some other position, right? Probably wide receiver. Pryor had real success in the NFL as a wide receiver after moving away from quarterback. This is the type of athlete where you would potentially look at that and say, even his worst case is probably a guy that gets a shot at another position, which I think does make him an interesting day 3 dart throw because, you know, maybe the worst case is still a player you get a little bit of value out of, and that's really not the case for most of the guys you're taking on day 3 at the quarterback position. So really intriguing prospect and a guy that I hope gets a chance to develop under a good offensive mind because there's a lot of talent there. Okay, let's end with my grade. I have a 5th round grade on Taylen Green. I think the tools are positive enough where, like, yes, I think this guy's worth drafting. Like I said, the worst case is maybe you move him to receiver and he figures it out there. So you can boost him up a little bit for that. However, I do think that it is really, really hard to see a path for him becoming a plus processor and plus thrower of the ball. And because of that, it's just really hard to see like good starter upside for him, which means it's just hard to get above like a fifth round grade. I think the odds he reaches his ceiling are low. And so because of that, it's hard to get way too excited about him, even though if it did all come together, you are talking about a guy with a ton of potential here. So I view this kind of in the Drew Aller bucket, who went last night in the draft of the Steelers in the 3rd round, where if you're looking for a guy with starter upside, Green is more so who you should be looking for in later rounds. But the odds that they get there because of some of the other concerns are really low. So that'll do it for this breakdown. Should have a couple more coming soon on some of the other later round quarterbacks in this year's draft. Thanks again for tuning in, and you can continue to stay tuned in for some future episodes. We'll catch y'all soon.